What's up, guys? We are live with the Short Term Rental Pros podcast. Today, I'm here with a trifecta of co-host property managers based out of South Florida. We've got Sean, Vanessa, and Tim from Easybreezy BnB.
Easybreezy BnB, that's us.
Easy breezy. Let's
Yeah.
go. So we got Easybreezy BnB in the house. They have scaled a co-host as well as also an ownership portfolio in the last several years in sunny South Florida. And Sean and Vanessa are actually a husband and wife duo. So super excited to have a great conversation today. We're going to talk about TPG moving into private equity firm moving into South Florida and kind of talk about what happened there, as well as some of the challenges that they're facing and how they are, how they're reacting to them. So Sean, Vanessa, Tim, thank you guys so much for coming today.
Thanks for having us.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So guys, let's hear a little bit about your background. How did you get the portfolio that you guys have today?
Yeah, definitely. So just kind of like a little preface or whatever, I had been involved in real estate investing kind of beforehand. And so one of the things that we were doing is I had a duplex, and Vanessa and I were living on one side and we had the other side rented out to a tenant. Long story short, the tenant moved out. I renovated the place and I was getting ready to re-rent it. And Vanessa kind of had this like crazy idea. She's like, hey, I want to do, let's do Airbnb or whatever. And I was like, no.
He was not for it.
I was not about it at all. I was like, that's like kind of a lot of work. And it's like, I don't want to deal with the headache and the parties and all this and that. And she kind of convinced me to do it. It took a lot of convincing, but I was like, okay.
I basically had to tell him I was going to do the entire thing for him, that he wasn't going to have to lift a finger, do all the furnishing, all the just handling of guests, everything. And then he finally agreed.
So the deal was she was going to take over everything. She was going to decorate it. She's going to run the whole show. She's going to do everything. And then I was like, okay, that's cool. And then we'll just, see how it goes. And so she was doing her thing over there, running it. And I started to see, like, as opposed to a tenant where you get the money every month, it was coming in every time the guest checked in. And I was like, oh, kind of like this.
You saw that Airbnb payout was sent. You saw that email notification.
Right. And then it hit the bank account. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of nice, So after that, I started to get a little bit more interested. And I'm like, okay, how can we is there like some sort of like, how are you pricing it? I started asking a couple questions here and there, started doing more research. And yeah, basically from there, I kind of got into it. And, I had just purchased another property. So we moved into that property and put the other side. So now both of the duplex units are on Airbnb, and they were both kind of doing well. And we were like, well, okay, we like this Airbnb thing. We want to kind of grow this business, but how can we grow it? Because obviously you can't keep buying properties. You're going to run out of money fairly quickly. So we're like, okay, well, there's probably other owners out there that are like me that are maybe interested in Airbnb, but I have no desire to run the business side of it because it can be a lot of work. It's a lot more hands-on than just sticking a tenant in there. And so that's where kind of the management company was born. Or Easybreezy.
So at first you wanted to do nothing. You're like, Vanessa, all right, if you do this, like, you've got it. And then you got that first payout, that hit your bank account. You're like, wait a minute here. I didn't have to do anything. And this money's coming. All right, let's see if we can do a little bit more of this. And then you hit all right, we can only buy, so many properties. Right. But I want this to keep going. What's another strategy or way to grow the portfolio? And that's kind of where you stumbled into co-hosting.
Yeah, a funny story actually. But yeah, so that is how we stumbled into co-hosting. We were looking at the different ways people were getting involved, and for a very, very small period, we were like, one of the things that's very popular you see online is this rental arbitrage thing. Mm-hmm. So there was a very small period where we were like calling up realtors and calling up for rent homes to try and do the whole rent it out and that whatever. But for us personally, we discovered fairly quickly it just wasn't, because with the upfront costs and everything, it just seemed like the better play was to see if we could partner with owners and do the management.
And especially just with rent in South Florida specifically being so high, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. You know what I mean? For the type of units that we were wanting to go for, there wasn't a lot of meat left on the bone after you paid rent and stuff like that. So
yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing. So, for folk listening, co-hosting, if you don't know already, is when you just manage a property for someone else. So you generally take what co-host fee do you guys charge?
25%.
So they take a quarter, 1/4 of gross revenue. If the house makes $10,000 a month, $2,500. If the house makes $5,000 a month, $1,250. So by doing that, you might not have, with arbitrage, you've got potentially higher upside, but also potentially a lot higher or downside. Because with co-hosting, you don't really have a downside. I mean, the downside is the co-host client decides to not, go with you anymore. So then, maybe you wasted a little bit of time talking to them and setting things up. But
Right.
you're not wasting your money. You didn't, it's a 3,000 square foot house. You didn't just spend $35,000 furnishing it. So I guess, did you guys look at the co-hosting as a way to just minimize risk?
For sure. I think arbitrage is I always say, I don't want to knock arbitrage, because if you don't have a portfolio or any clout, so to speak, it's really hard to get somebody to agree to let you manage their property without any experience. So I think arbitrage can be a great way to get your foot in the door. Luckily, we had our own properties that we were able to show off that we were managing, but for sure, co-hosting was what we felt was the safest and the smartest bet for our business specifically, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, what I tell people is you have to either show people your own listings, whether you buy or arbitrage, or you have to creatively lend someone else's listings. So, I have a portfolio of 25 listings. If someone wants to work with me, we can figure out how to present that in a way that, makes them look legit, but also, I obviously have to vet and make sure they are legit. But I digress. So you guys were able to build your own portfolio. Initially,
I did have to do a lot of free labor in the beginning to get my first client to let me manage his property. But it's all right.
Tell me about that first client. How did you find that first client, and walk me through that deal and that relationship?
That was actually a really interesting situation. Sean made us a website, and we randomly get a call from somebody who somehow found our website. I don't even know how.
It was on. Okay, so this is a little pro tip for anybody who's starting out. Get a website, and then get your business or your company on Google Maps.
Hey.
Google Maps, Google Maps. When they search the business, it comes up with the phone numbers or whatever. Get a couple of your friends to get you a little 5-star reviews, couple of them there, and that's how he found us. So he called us up. And we go over to.
We over there the same day.
Oh, I mean,
y'all were on it.
I was like, oh, you want okay, we can come check it out now. You ready now?
And it was in a great neighborhood. It was a really nice house. And when we got there, honestly, I was so nervous. Thankfully, Sean, he's fake it till you make it. He has so much balls, so to speak, because I was shaking in my boots. And then when we got there, the owner himself was an Airbnb property manager in I think North Carolina, but had a huge portfolio. So I was even more nervous when he said that, because I'm he's totally gonna smell our funk and know
Luckily, we had just enough experience, because he was asking us questions that normal clients, regular clients that don't really know, don't really ask. So luckily, we knew just enough to oh, okay, they seem like they know what they're doing or whatever. But I don't know if he knew or not, but he ended up taking a chance on us.
He hired us on the spot.
And I think that just shows, and I tell people this: meet people in person, and that's a huge advantage. I think it's sitting at that 20, 25 property mark is a very comfortable place to be in short-term rentals, because once you get up to that 100, 200, you really can't allocate time to building the relationships, meeting folk in person. But you have a unique advantage starting, because you do have that time. You can get up and go. And that's why they're going to pick you. People say, oh, why are they going to go with someone new versus Vacasa or one of these massive property managers? Because you just went over there. Because
that's been huge for us. And we've had so many of our clients tell us actually that the reason why they chose us, one of the main reasons why they chose us, is because A, we picked up the phone and were available, and B, we showed up right away. And when we said we would, and did what we said we were going to do. So it has been huge, just being there and showing face and shaking their hand and walking through their property with them to address their concerns. It has been huge.
Got it. So you got that co-host client literally from making a website and a Google business profile. How did you further scale from there?
So from there, okay, yeah. So we had the Google business profile and we were getting a couple leads here and there. We got like from there, I think we got like a couple more. Oh,
The secret sauce,
oh,
babe. Should you tell them the secret
I forgot
sauce?
about that. Yeah. Oh man. So
Get the
so
juice.
so when we first started, one of the things that I would do was I would
He's giving you trade secrets right now because we never tell anybody this. It was our secret sauce forever.
I completely forgot about this. So what I would do is I would make these revenue reports for how much a house could make in the area, right? Like so I would go on Zillow or Redfin or something like that, and I would pull up all the houses that look like something that we would want to manage, and I would that were for sale, and I would create a revenue report, and then I would email the realtors, right, this revenue report. But I wouldn't just email them. I would then show up to the open house and say, hey, I'm the guy that like emailed you, so they knew it wasn't spam, like I was an actual person. And then from there,
you would bring a stack of the revenue reports and say, here, leave this on your open house to show your potential buyers, what the property could make.
yeah. And so realtors got to know who I was and they started referring me out, especially because the thing is with anything, right? You're consistent. I would do this every single day, right? So eventually, like it's the same realtors that are kind of doing most of the volume in the area. And so they start seeing your email enough, and then you show up to their house a couple times and they're like, oh, okay. And then also too, having that stack of the revenue reports, it's just extra information that helps them sell the house, right? So now people are like looking at this, they're like, oh, this is interesting. They have a potential Airbnb buyer. And then the guy's like, oh, I have this for you. And then it has my phone number, our company logo, all nice and neat right there.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden,
branded like the actual revenue report. So that was good too, because like the buyers would come in and take them. And even if they didn't buy that house specifically, they would call us for other properties that they were considering.
Yeah, they would call us. Oh, what do you think this property can make? Oh, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, now we're starting to get calls. So that was how it got our like initial lead flow.
I love this, and part of the reason I love this is because it kind of validates something that I've been working on. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with BNBCalc software?
BNBCalc, vaguely.
All right. I guess our ads haven't been going to the right people.
Your DNA.
No, so essentially what BNBCalc is, it's essentially a spreadsheet, so an analysis digitized on a web application. And we have a lot of realtors who will analyze a property, run the numbers, and then share it to their clients. But what I want to also work on is branded reports for vacation rental managers / co-hosts. So you can analyze a property, you can show how much it would make as a short-term rental, how much is a long-term rental potentially. It'll have your phone number, it'll have your email there, and just kind of like, export to PDF. If you want to print it out, export to PDF. If you want to just send it, click the share link and send it. So is that kind of like the concept? I'm sure you guys manually built out these reports.
Yeah, for sure. So basically what I did was I did a report, and then I figured out like, okay, this looks nice. And then I just kind of used that as a template and then just swapped out the numbers and the pictures and stuff.
But you built your own template and then kind of like took stuff and put it into Excel to do everything and then brought it back into the report.
Well, yeah. So it was very simple, honestly. It's not like software or anything like that. I literally had like a Word document, right? That had like, the address, the picture, the information, whatever. And what I would do is I would manually like go to, all these property listings, and I would copy the picture, paste it in, and swap it out. And like, but I'm getting all the numbers from like AirDNA or whatever. So, you get the numbers from AirDNA and you just change the number out and then save as PDF and done. So it was, probably a rudimentary version of what you have going on. But
you guys are obviously, figure it outers, make it workers, I'm not saying other people aren't, but definitely we're just trying to make that process as easy as possible. Folk don't have to like recreate the wheel. So I just love hearing you guys say that. And I would love to show you guys what we're doing and get your feedback. We can do that. We can do that offline here, but let's keep going. So let me just get this straight. Google Business was the first client. Clients after that were going to open houses, dropping your stack, and essentially, I want to say building relationships with referral partners.
100%.
Realtors were big. Yeah.
And these realtors, would they connect you with other potential clients?
All the time.
And they loved it so much because a lot of the times realtors have a hard time accurately like deciding how much an Airbnb can make and
They
how
have
to
no
guide
idea.
their client on that.
No
They have
clue.
no idea, and a lot of times they're completely off. So for them, it was almost like a sigh of relief to have a partner that they could rely on that would give numbers that like we would back. You know what I mean? Like if we give you a number, like we're gonna back this number. This is what your property is gonna make. So they were referring us to their other realtor friends, like all their client, like it just became like an actual thing. And like the
Yeah.
name Easy Breezy really started to go around Fort Lauderdale. That, and also we have a meetup that we've been doing for like 2 years now with our friends that started it and asked us to co-host it. That's been huge too.
Yeah, the meetup and just getting to know a bunch of the investors in the area. So in the beginning, also too, in addition to that, we had our own meetup that we were kind of helping with, but we would also go to a bunch of the other meetups in the area. So once you do that, again, it's not a huge pool of people that are going to these things regularly. So you start to get to know other people, and people start to associate you with short-term rentals, and they start coming to you, asking you questions, and then all of a sudden you're starting to get phone calls from like we're starting to get phone calls from people like that had heard about us from somebody else, and I had never met or heard of them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the referral, that word of mouth.
Like a beacon for short-term rentals. Like that was what we said from the beginning. Like we want to be a beacon for short-term rentals as a short-term rental specialist in Fort Lauderdale. Like you have a question, Easy Breezy are the people that you're going to call to get an answer for it.
And you guys are just giving value to people, essentially. You just focused on providing value, providing information. And what I'd say is like the more you give, the more you get. And
For
you
sure.
became the experts. So, and that obviously translated. So tell me, so when did you guys start scaling, by the way?
Ooh, started scaling. 2021 is when we kind of started growing. Yeah.
Honestly,
Gotcha.
like as soon as we started that first unit up, like we were like, oh, this is it. And once Sean, he's like the brains behind everything. Once he puts his mind on something, the machine starts going, and we just like we're out the door. He started figuring out how are we gonna get these leads in. So yeah, 2021 we started, and it went pretty quickly. I think by that first year we had hit 11 or 12. And then by our second year, we were at like 20, and then we're 4 or 5 months out from our second year, and we're at like 25 now. So.
Gotcha. So you guys have been able to scale this. And at what point did you guys have jobs prior to this? And was there a point where you guys said, F this, we're going full time?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a flight attendant, or I was a flight attendant, but actually COVID hit and my flying decreased significantly. So that was actually why I was like home so bored, and I'm like, babe, let me turn next door into an Airbnb. Like I had nothing to do.
Let me play, Sean. Let me play.
Yeah, like I mean, he's like, no, I'm not dealing with this. Absolutely not. But yeah, so that started there, and then honestly, the environment in aviation had changed so much after COVID, and I just hated working there. And then everything with Easy Breezy started scaling so much. So I was just like, oh no, like this is done for me. I'm just never going back there again. Like I want to go full throttle with Easy Breezy, and this is my baby. So let's grow it.
Yeah.
How's Sean for you?
Yeah. So I'm actually a pharmacist. Yeah, so I'm a pharmacist, but I had stopped working as a pharmacist years ago, maybe like 7 years ago.
I took you as like a quant. Thought Sean was the numbers guy, but I guess
to be honest with you, I do kind of have like a little bit of an affinity for numbers. Science is, but my parents are both pharmacists, so they kind of pushed me into that field. I didn't really like it too much, and so I actually left pharmacy a while back and started investing in real estate and that sort of thing. And I actually started with Tim over there. We decided to just jump into flipping houses and stuff like that. So I had some like investing prior, like real estate investing stuff, and that's what I was doing. So I went from pharmacy to just real estate investing, flipping houses, flipping land, and then that's when at the time she wanted to do the Airbnb, and I was busy doing the other stuff. So I was like, that's why I was kind of hesitant because
he agreed to appease me. He was tired of hearing me talk all day about it, so he finally gave in.
Yeah, but I mean, now this is what we both do full time. So
seems like Vanessa's the one who pushes you out of your comfort zone, but then you end up in hindsight being like, I'm thankful that you did that.
For sure.
And I could not have done it without him because I had no entrepreneurial background whatsoever. Like being a business owner was nothing that had ever crossed my mind. So like the skill set that he brought to the table there's just nothing that could value what he brought to the table. I would have never been able to build it as quickly as I did without having him, help me out. So it was kind of
Granted,
like the perfect
well,
storm.
let's not sell. So I feel like the thing that's cool about short-term rentals or that I've seen is like the husband-wife combo crush it. And generally, I don't want to generalize. We're not going to generalize here, but what I've seen is oftentimes, the wife or the partner design. Like they're good. They've got the design eye. The man, more the numbers, more the kind of like operations.
Yes.
Is that a appropriate characterization here?
100%. I definitely do all the design stuff. Like I said, I did my first 3 properties for free, aka Mr. Howell's properties. But it was very necessary for us because that was like our portfolio and that's what we used, you know what I mean, to go out and say, look what I can do. And that in itself ended up becoming like its own little side business because most of our clients are out-of-state investors. So they don't have the time, nor do they want to be involved in any of that. So as full service, it was really great for us to be able to offer that extra added service.
And she's talking about, just by the way, she's talking about
Setup.
like designing and decor.
Yeah.
So
Design and then also the setup, like the furniture,
Yes.
like helping with the furniture assembly,
furniture
coordinating
setup.
with contractors. Which I'm gonna give a story from me, like setting up. So I started with co-hosting. Just for a little bit of background about myself, I initially started with co-hosting. Then just owners would come to me and just say, hey, do you want to lease this? Like instead of do the whole property management thing. And that's how I got into arbitrage. I didn't even know it was called arbitrage. I didn't even know it was called co-hosting, at the beginning. I wasn't on TikTok enough back then to know all the lingo. But one of my early property management clients, they just moved out of the house and they had like taken a lot of the furniture with them. So I spent 3 or 4 days like literally sleeping on their floor, like assembling, like going to Sam's Club, going to Costco, assembling furniture. And then 2 months into the engagement, they said, we're going to do this ourselves. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I literally just slept on your floor, And like, you had a landscaper get there at 4 a.m., like 2 days in a row. Like, I was scared. Like, I didn't. But then from there, I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this again, I'm charging a setup fee. So Is that something you guys started doing?
100%. Listen, after I did my first 2 projects and just saw the pure mountain of trash alone that I had to figure out how to dispose of, I was like, and also like it does really take a significant amount of time. And that's time that's taking me away from being able to go out and chase other leads down. So like, it's gotta be worth my time. And then you also get to a space where like, if I have to run a few projects at one time, like I need a team and I need to be able to pay this team to help me set this up. So yeah, for sure. Now we definitely charge for those projects. Like there's just no way that I can do them for free. Like it's not gonna happen.
Gotcha. But that first client, this is something I often, tell folk is it only takes like one. People say, think, oh, how am I going to get to 5 houses? Like, yeah, you can get to 5 houses with 5 different clients. Like that's possible. But oftentimes what you see is one landlord or one client might bring you 3 of them, 4 of them, 5 of them. So it sounds like you were able to go deep with this early investor, and that really helped cascade everything.
Yeah, for sure. We have a few investors actually that have given us more than one property.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Which again, it's also just relationship management is easier, when they can call you and talk to you versus, talking to you about one little condo here and there. So, okay. So you guys were able to scale creatively through relationships with realtors. And I'm curious, did you guys do a referral fee with the realtors or not?
Not really. So like we kind of like toyed around with it for a little bit, but to be honest with you, our main value proposition to them was just being kind of like, because
sell the damn house.
Yeah, I'm helping you sell the house
those numbers.
And giving them the numbers and being a resource, because especially at that time, not as much now, but especially at that time, a lot of people, everybody was trying to buy an Airbnb and they just didn't have the information to give to them often.
Yeah.
So, just having somebody that they can reliably call and be like, hey, can you help me close this client? Hey, can you help me find this client a good property that's going to work for them? That was oftentimes enough of
That's a really big point to make. And that was one of the things I think that we were offering and I guess I can't speak for other management companies, but I know that like, because Sean was already an investor, he wasn't just like a management company that wanted to like manage your property. Like he was able to analyze a deal for you from an investor standpoint. Like does this make sense? Like, there's been times when we've told clients, no, just put a long-term tenant in there. It's going to make more sense for you. And I think that added so much value because it allowed our clients to trust us so much more, because he wasn't just making these numbers up. And a lot of times they would say, oh, well, I spoke to this management company and they gave me this, this number. And Sean's like, yeah, but now you have to factor in all your expenses. You have to factor in your platform fees and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, after you do all that, with what your mortgage is, like, it doesn't make sense. So I think that was a huge piece of like why we were so successful too, is because we were investors as well, and we were able to analyze it from that standpoint.
Yeah, so and also too, just a quick add. Also too, like a lot of the times, sometimes the houses that the realtors would have them sometimes even under contract for already, then they would ask me for the numbers. I'm like, you shouldn't buy that house. I mean, it's not going to work. I'm like, you should probably not buy that house.
That's happened a few times, but they're thankful. And then guess what? When they find another house, guess who they come back to help them analyze and manage that property? Us, So
know your numbers essentially, yes. And just be an asset, be the domain expert, provide value, provide and you shall receive. So you guys were able to grow to 25 properties. Obviously, I have 2 properties in Florida. Things were gangbusters during COVID, especially, I don't know about y'all, but all these Canadians coming down because all the super strict COVID regulations and requirements up there. But things were people coming out, let me rent this place 3, 4, 5 months. It was hot. And now, things have reverted kind of to the mean. And at the same time, people are moving to Florida. So the demand, home prices have shot up. The demand for long-term rents have gone up. So yeah, what have you guys seen kind of since that COVID craziness over the last, since then?
Mess down here since COVID. COVID really shaped up a lot for us down here, especially like that rise in like home prices definitely came from that COVID Airbnb bubble. The numbers that we were doing on Airbnb during COVID were like unicorn numbers. You know what I mean? They were just insane. So now all these people that are coming from out of town and from places like New York, where houses are so much more expensive at the time, they're like, what? I could buy this house here for this much and then put it on Airbnb and make this much? And then that's when you were seeing all those people coming down here buying houses without even seeing it for like $50,000, $60,000 over asking. And then all of a sudden COVID is done, that bubble pops, and those numbers are reverting back to what they were before. And people are like, oh, excuse my language, shit, now I have this huge mortgage, but I'm not making what I thought I was going to make. So I think that had a huge impact on our market down here for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And then during that time, you could pretty much, it was to a point where there was a window of time where Airbnb was so lucrative down here. You could literally go on the MLS, pick any house with a pool, and you're going to do 20 to 25% cash on cash after paying a manager. So obviously investors flocked here like crazy and bought every single pool home. And then when they weren't getting that ask, you said, well, exactly, like I can get 25% after paying a manager. What so they were just buying. And they were paying more and more and more because they're like, well, I don't need 25%. I'm good with 20. I'm good with 18. I'm good with 15. And the margins kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And it was kind of crazy because back before this whole Airbnb craze, the difference in price between a non-pool home and a pool home neighboring houses may be like $40,000. After, the difference in price with a gap widened to like $200,000-$300,000 difference. So it
you need the pool. It's not even an option.
It's not even. Now they don't even want to take a property if it doesn't have a pool. To be honest, like it's got to be a very unique and special property if it doesn't have a pool for us to take it on, because it's going to be tough for it to perform in the way that the owner likely needs it to perform. And the thing is, we always like to work like a win-win situation, right? Like I don't want to be in a situation where I'm managing a property for you. You're not making your numbers that you need, and now you're coming back to me, right? Because it's not performing the way that you need it to perform or whatever. So, I'm always now we're a lot more picky, and I try to inform owners that come to us now, like, hey, like this is the realistic situation. Like if you don't have a pool, it's going to be kind of tough,
Got it. And has your guys' strategy changed? So initially during COVID, it was helping new investors access South Florida. Now has it became more of investors who already own a house who maybe they didn't think about how much work it might be to manage it, or maybe they went with Vacasa or one of these like massive property managers and they're like,
Right.
we're just not getting the service we need. We're looking for someone else.
Yeah, I think completely transparent, I think we're still working on that shift for sure.
Sure.
We have had a little bit of a success recently with, some of the national brands that just don't really live up to their expectations, like you said. And then us having such a great portfolio and like, I guess, rep in South Florida. We've gotten a few clients like that. We've been trying to chase down those leads. But yeah, we definitely talked a lot about, and that's kind of where Tim has really jumped in as a team member with us and like helping us kind of chase down new leads and different avenues. We talked a lot about marketing to people who already, like you said, have existing vacation homes or people that have owned the home for a while and maybe had a long-term tenant, so their mortgage is probably really low. Maybe they even paid the house off. It's definitely something that we're kind of looking into still.
It's a lot of right now. It's a lot more like less like investors because the investors aren't really investing right now, and more second homeowners,
Yep.
right? Vacation homeowners, people that have a reason to not want to put a tenant in there, right? Like they want to use their home as a vacation or an escape from the Northeast or wherever they're coming from, right? So it's a lot of that, and then a lot of now, like you were saying and Vanessa was saying, some of the national brands that aren't taking the best care of some of the homes, unhappy customers or whatever, switching over. They already have a short-term rental. They're just kind of switching over to somewhere else.
Got it. So what do you guys see moving forward? And I love that you guys are in Florida because we've got two properties there, and frankly, I'm most of my portfolio is in North Carolina. Like it's in different cities in North Carolina, but like generally speaking, I would say that like the people who work at the cities are like kind of the same, type like pretty normal folk. I have had the experience in Florida where it just seems like I don't know, people are I mean, you guys live there, but it's just people, there's some characters there, and navigating South Florida is a challenge. So have you guys just kind of been able, like, are you guys in one city? Are you guys in a bunch of cities? And I'm just curious personally, how do you navigate like each city and all their, different requirements? And because I've even had like you talk to two people in the same city and they say different things. So
Yeah. Where
what's
are
your
your properties
experience?
in Florida at?
They're in Palm Beach County,
Okay.
Okay.
like West Palm, Lake Worth areas.
Cool.
So where are your guys?
We're in Fort Lauderdale. So all of our properties are pretty much in like the greater East Fort Lauderdale
So it's
area.
one city essentially.
No.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Well, yes
Yeah,
and no.
yes. Yeah, I mean, like if you take Fort Lauderdale, like within Fort Lauderdale, there's like, the different neighborhoods like Wilton Manors, Oakland Park. And then we go one city north and one city south. So Pompano and then Dania is south.
But each of those little cities in Fort Lauderdale have different rules and regulations. Like,
Exactly.
general things that are the same, but they all have like little nuances. So now we're familiar with them. Like now we know all the inspectors. They know who we are at this point. But I mean, in the beginning, it's definitely tough to navigate because you think you got it like nailed down, and then you move to a new city. Like we went to Oakland Park from Fort Lauderdale, and we like, oh my God, the inspection list is so different. Like we have to completely redo what we did.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I'm getting hit with my Florida learning curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had to make systems kind of like, or not systems, but like I had to make like a kind of like a checklist basically for each city. So, we have like a playbook or whatever that basically is like a reference sheet that has a bunch of links and it has information that we need frequently, right? So we can always go back to this one sheet and it has a bunch of information. So we have like each city regulations and their inspection requirements there. So that way we don't have to go looking for it every single time. I can just go to my reference sheet, click on it. Okay, I need X, Y, Z. And that's kind of been the best way to organize it. But you're right. I mean, South Florida is kind of a crazy place.
It's a mess. People don't answer their phones. Nobody actually knows what's going on. Like it's a mess for sure. And I think that's why it's so important that you do have kind of somebody on the ground to like help you navigate that, especially if you're out of state. And then most of the time investors have their own jobs that are like full-time jobs, and they don't have the time to be chasing down the inspector to come check out their property. So for sure, it's a mess down here.
Yeah, they come in and they say, "Oh, what is this? You got a tiki hut here. Tiki huts aren't allowed." Oh, wait, they're only allowed if you get them built by Native Americans.
Or if they're like 6 feet off the fence, but
Yeah.
there's always some weird thing for sure.
Yeah, we've been dealing with the tiki hut situations, and
Oh man.
you says you don't need a permit, like by federal law, you don't need a permit, but then the city says you need a permit, but then you tell them this is federal law here. Am I reading this wrong? And then they go, okay, you're right, but this is our process. And then you have a second property and another tiki hut, and then that's a different process than the one you did at the first property. All right, I could complain about Florida all day, obviously. I'm triggered here, but obviously you guys have figured it out, and that's why just having domain expertise on a localized level is such a value add to investors and homeowners. So this being said, I know we touched on this before the show, but TPG, there was a big article the other day. It was kind of funny. TPG posted that, I think Wall Street Journal posted that TPG was starting to buy a bunch of homes in South Florida to do as short-term rentals. And I posted on my Instagram story, will be interesting to see how the suits perform at the STR game, because, this game's hospitality business. You have to craft experiences. It's not, I think a lot of times like private equity investors think that like you just buy the asset and like it's done. They don't understand the design, how important and valuable design is. And they don't really want to get in the nitty gritty of all these little things that, maybe local regulations of calling this inspector to figure out, all that Florida specific stuff maybe. But that being said, article came out that they were coming in, and then the article came out 2 days later that they were going out. So did you guys pick up on that article? And I guess what's your reaction?
I didn't see that article, but what's really funny about that is we've had a few bigger brands from out of state call us with offers to buy the company. And that's been a common thing that they say, that we've been trying to get into that market in Fort Lauderdale and we just haven't been able to tap into it. So now we're just trying to buy other management companies that are kind of already built out and stuff that have a portfolio to see if that will help us break into the market there. So that definitely sounds kind of on brand for Fort Lauderdale or South Florida right now.
Yeah, and I think it's something I say is vacation rental management companies can be acquired. Co-host businesses can get bought. Arbitrage businesses cannot get bought because you've got a lease, and that lease, it's not transfer. As much as everyone says, "Oh, the leases are transferable," it's really not. There's not a lot of mergers and acquisitions in the arbitrage space. But for co-hosting vacation rental management, there is. It was gangbusters during COVID. Picasso was buying anybody, writing out their checkbook and giving anybody, really good terms. Now it's died down a little bit, but you guys are telling me you're still getting hit up for conversations about acquisitions?
Yeah, no, I mean not crazy.
Not crazy.
We've gotten a couple phone calls or whatever, but yeah, it's just kind of funny to hear that. I mean, I'm not surprised that, especially if they're coming in now and trying to buy properties for in South Florida, I'm not surprised that they made an exit very quickly, because it doesn't take very long to see that the numbers aren't spectacular. I mean, depending on how they're buying the properties too. I don't know if they're buying these properties cash or if they're using a bank, but I mean, as you guys know, the interest rates are pretty high right now. So you have kind of high, and the prices of homes haven't really dropped too much.
Yeah.
And they're not going to, because you got people just moving into Florida, and that trend has not decreased.
Yeah. So I mean, you have where a 3-2 with a pool, for example, right? You used to be able to pick one up for I don't know, $500,000 at a 3% interest rate or whatever, and your payments your payments $2,000, 2,200 or whatever. But now it's versus now the 3-2 with the pool is $650 and the interest rate's 8% and your mortgage is $6,000. I mean,
it doesn't even make
how
sense.
can you?
Yeah.
Even if you want to put a long-term tenant in there, you're not going to get $6,500 with a long-term tenant. It's really hard to make the numbers work right now.
Yeah, and I think the thing in Florida, because I hear it talk a lot all the time, short-term rentals, housing crisis. I'm the issue with Florida is you've got people, from the Northeast, and I'm pointing up, but technically I'm in New York City right now, so I don't know where I'm pointing. Maybe I'll point down. You've got people who, they don't want to pay New York taxes, Massachusetts taxes, Connecticut taxes. So they're going to buy a house in Florida with cash. They've got so much money. and they're not going to live there. Like they might say they live there for, they might, oh, I live in Florida, quote unquote. Maybe they'll stay there 1 year for like 6 months and a day, get the residency. They're out. They are out. So that house is unoccupied. Like people bought that in order to evade taxes. So you're telling me that a house that is occupied by renters on a a lot of times, for us, like multiple families, like staying like sometimes for extended periods, like versus a rich guy from New York just bought a house in cash to never go there. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm not in charge, but I would look at things maybe. So you guys have seen that firsthand where like Northeast folks just buying houses in South Florida.
Yeah, those New Yorkers took over. I'm not even gonna lie. They took over South Florida, like straight up took over.
And a lot of times they're buying and kind of just to play the tax game.
Yeah, definitely play the tax game, but even just again, like just because they want a vacation house down here and like why not, right? So which again is a great client resource for us because they're not so much worried about it making money. They just want it to cover its expenses. So that's kind of a win-win for us, especially in today's market because it's hard to kind of cash flow right now.
Is there a lot of the 6 month and a day people, where they'll say just half the year?
We got like a couple of those, but it's a lot more so second homeowners.
Yeah.
Got it. So how are you guys? So what is your guys' tangible pro tip for anyone listening to get clients?
Ooh, tangible pro tip. Okay. Meet people. And I know that's so general, but like really like I'm telling you when we were first starting, going to those open houses, not just sending the email with the report, but actually going to those open houses, shaking hands with the realtor, talking with them a little bit, right? Now, maybe, I don't know if in other markets that's still as viable of a strategy. I don't know how people are buying in other markets, but going to your local meetups and showing up consistently, getting to know people and letting them know what you do and who you are. And as you go more consistently, right, people get to know you, they start talking to you, you start learning more about them as people, and they learn more about you as a person. And people like to do business with people that they like, right? So, next time that something comes up, they're gonna think, oh, hey, by the way, like Sean, I think Sean does that short term. Give him a call. He knows what he's doing.
I think that, and also educating yourself in what you're doing, because I think it's extremely unethical to kind of just say, I want to get into short-term rentals, so I'm just going to manage anybody's property. But if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know how to run your numbers, like you're dealing with somebody's hard-earned investment property, and you can really screw somebody over if you don't know what you're doing. They could lose their investment. So
especially if they're getting into a new investment.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So like we did so many mentorships with people that were way advanced with us. We did a lot of courses, like we did a lot of learning, and there's so like you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's people that are happy to teach you how to analyze a deal and stuff. So definitely spend time doing that to make sure that you are actually capable of managing somebody's property and in the right way.
That's actually a very tangible pro tip that I think should be highlighted, because our second really big stage of growth came after we did a mentorship with Julie George. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. It was this company called Legends X, and we did a mentorship with Eric Moeller, I think Jasper and Julie George were kind of running it there. And anyways, long story short, through them and through that, we learned not only how to systemize our business, build the playbook, but also they taught us their methods for finding new clients as well, right? So like you say, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can learn from people more experienced than you. And a lot of times, like, mentorships and stuff, like it's going to pay for itself 10 times over, know? So invest in yourself, invest in the education. That has also been really, really, really big for us.
Absolutely. And I could not, as someone who invests heavily in mentorships and coaching on, at this point, so many different topics, like anything that I'm even thinking about potentially doing, if I can't have the playbook on how to do it, I'll probably stay away, because I just know the amount of time and energy to recreate a wheel is just not worth it. So I couldn't agree more. So how could folk, who have enjoyed your story today, want to get to know you guys better, how can they stay current?
Check out our Instagram, EasyBreezyBnB, at EasyBreezyBnB. And then you can also check out our website and reach out to us there at EasyBreezyBnB.com.
Got it. And then, yeah, one more question. I know Tim, you guys have brought him to help with growth. So I'm assuming part of the operations virtual assistants a component there to build out that, that process.
We actually just recently got our first VA a few months ago, but that was actually huge. It took a lot off my plate from like messaging guests and stuff. We've got a really big and great cleaning team that are crucial, can't do it without them. Then we also have a what we call boots on the ground manager that is basically doing just that, boots on the ground. If there's maintenance that's going on, he's going to check that out. He's checking behind cleaners, just making sure that the overall property is staying in good condition. And then Tim, he's on board not only just to help us find leads, but we really needed help organizing and getting our finances in control, because between just me and Sean, with the growth that we're doing, it was just really difficult to kind of keep all that organized and run the entire business at the same time. And they've done real estate together. Tim is also a numbers guy, so he's really been helping us kind of like organize that side and analyze like, how much we're making and stuff like that, so that way we can make some bigger moves moving forward. So that team is also going to be crucial, but be prepared to just wear a lot of hats in the beginning. That's the name of the game when you start a business, but actively keep in your mind how you can get these roles off your plate for sure.
Absolutely. Automate and scale. Name of the game. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for joining today. And everybody who's listening, stay tuned for the next episode of the Short Term Rental Pros podcast.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.